Where we left off, Andelz Copperwolf had just departed from a bookstore that turned out to be owned by some sort of strange mage, from whom he received the ability to protect himself from certain kinds of mind control magic. And he has an example of that protection enchanting him currently. He is still trying to find out where Asantha Labsnort could be. Thinking back, he remembers that as he fled in squirrel form from her laboratory, she said, "Run away, little Andelz. I'll be waiting for you here." And as an errant, Andelz knows when people are lying to him, and she was. He wonders if it's safe to go back to that laboratory. Maybe he can find some clues there. Maybe she will have cleaned up all the evidence and moved somewhere else, although that seems like a lot of work. He could try and visit the town watch or some of his other contacts, not be working alone. He's not quite sure what's the best choice. Let's see if his intuition can help him. Only the smallest amount of help. He thinks that visiting that building at least a little bit should be productive. She was using it as a laboratory, so it's not like she can have all sorts of elaborate traps set up, he thinks. And maybe he can find some evidence that he can take to get some help. So he goes there, and first we'll just circle the building, looking to see if he can track her, if there's any evidence of where she left and where she went. Maybe, let's see how stealthy she was when she left. No, he doesn't notice anything. And I'm going to look at this card again from the side decks. The next thing in the list of recommended encounters is that his food and drink is poisoned, leaving him vulnerable to a gang of thugs. That doesn't quite fit. But I will say that one of his old friends, we need a new name, unless there's something in the backgrounds. We haven't used 3 characters special to him. We've used 2 of the 3. We haven't used Fexella Tweenthorpe. I'll add her to our notes. We just had that she's a disfigured Therian thug. So Fexella comes around the corner and notices him, circling the building. "Andelz, I thought you had left town," she says. And he straightens up from where he was crouching by a window well, looks a little guilty, and says, "Well, something brought me back." And Fexella replies, "Oh, really? Well, come, let me buy you a drink and tell me about it." Andelz accepts the offer, and they walk a little bit down the street. Let's see if the journey has anything happen. So on the random list, a foreboding potent unsettles you. Lose a resilience. So you will start the next event with less resilience than otherwise. And if a medium, wonder, or intuition is successful, I don't lose more. Well, let's use intuition. He is good at that. But he fails it. So he loses another one. And failure means a goalpost is upended. So he's not going to be able to track Asantha at all from where he last saw her. And that kind of makes sense with what the card was saying. So, what is the portent that he sees that's so foreboding? Going to my Mad Libs, puzzling history. So he remembers that Fexella was working a different part of town last he knew. Surprised that he sees her here now. And I confess, completely forgotten over the time we've been doing this adventure of what time of day it is in the story. Let me think. He woke up, captured by Asantha, had a visitation from Nash, went to visit the priest, Robe, last Earth at the temple, and went to the bookstore. So it might be lunchtime now. So Fexella is taking him to a meal, not just a drink. And he notices that Fexella doesn't seem to be acting like her normal self. She's a little too cheerful, a little too optimistic as she is talking about what she's been up to. He has trouble knowing what to make of that, but it is a little unsettling that it seems like all of his old colleagues, the former gang members, are changed. And he hadn't been away from Arlanach town very long, just a bit of healing at the Meek Man. But she takes him to some place and they get some food. And then his food and drink are poisoned. And he wakes up and he is in a basement with a coin under his tongue. It looks like Fexella was controlled by Asantha or in league with her. He is not sure. She seemed to be speaking okay, despite perhaps having a coin under her tongue. And he takes the coin out. Thankfully, his enchantment protects it from controlling him, and wonders what to do. Is the owner of this restaurant also in league? It would seem so, if he was left in the basement for someone else to retrieve. Who owns the basement? Looks like random name Rydya Sludgedrone. If he was captured during what we thought of as normal lunchtime, I'm saying this is a very small establishment. A little more than a food cart with maybe one table inside for people to sit at. Most people picking something up to take along elsewhere. And that's why there were not other people eating there to notice when Andelz fell unconscious and was dragged down to the basement. He's going to try and sneak up and get out of here, open whatever kind of door there is at the top of the stairs. Maybe he even has some sort of exterior door or window he can climb out. Is that true? No, it's not. So he's going to try and sneak out through the inside of this building. And he's very sneaky. So he quietly pushes the door open. It's not locked because they presume the coin would be controlling him. And he is in the back of the kitchen, and he sees Rydya there, humming to herself as she is doing more preparations and maybe some cleaning, depending on how long he has been out. He looks out the front window of the shop and sees that it's still sunlight, so it hasn't gotten to be dark. Must still be sometime in the afternoon. And I'm just going to say he has lost some fortitude as the effect of whatever poison knocked him out. So he wants to use wrestle to subdue Rydya and question her. I'm going to say this will be tough to do. He will require a 1, but he's not in a rush, so he's going to take some time and get set up well to do this, which will give him an extra die and spend that being set up well. But taking extra time means that Asantha has some time also. Doubly so because he was knocked out for a bit. So we'll have 2 marks as far as complications coming. We'll see if that happens after he grapples with Rydya. So he sneaks up to her and tries to just pull her to the ground behind the counter where no one outside will see. He does not get the 1 he needs, so he is now in the middle of a wrestling contest with her. He did succeed in his wrestle roll, and that will let him do something. So I'm going to say that he now has a small bonus to do other things. He has her in a slightly disadvantageous position. He's also going to spend some heroism to do a identify, see if he can notice something. Actually, no, he's going to attempt to wonder. Well, wonder is equally bad at both. That's okay. He will attempt to wonder. He's going to try and intimidate her and say, give up. I am much tougher and more dangerous than you were told. And he manages, I meant to say medium. He manages that, so she won't be able to use her four-sided dice the next 2 turns. Let's put out some markers for that. It's her turn. She is going to try and break free. Her wrestling is not great, and she has to use these because she can't use the four-sided dice. So she will try and break free, and just medium. But she fails. He's going to try and get into an even more advantageous position. So his wrestle is normally 3. Because of his success, then he has 1 extra die this turn and next. Can he pin her? Well, now there's going to be a penalty for 2 turns when he's going to reduce her movement rate. So yes, he has pinned her now. She can't get away. With 4 dice, that would be enough with him already wrestling. And she says, "You're supposed to be asleep and dormant because of some magic coin." That's what Fexella said. She just paid me. I don't know what's going on. Andelz knows she is lying. He says, "You can't lie to me. I'm an errant. She didn't even tell you that." He wrenches her uncomfortably, gets her arm behind her back. "Tell me what I need to know." And Rydya says, "This is bigger than what you think. The powers are losing their grip on their domains. The times of turbulence have begun." And she clearly believes whatever she's saying, although it doesn't make much sense to him. He says, "Asantha was my friend. I'm just trying to help her. She's going bad. Something's wrong here. Something is turning her rotten." And Rydya laughs and says, No. She's doing exactly what she wants. If you want to help her, then join us." "Haven't you heard? People have been citing undead that Nash hasn't been controlling. It's not just Lydia. It's not just Asantha. There's more going on. There's old things waking up and newer things stopping working. Andelz says, "I don't like being attacked and having magic things that control my mind put under my tongue. Don't think I want to join this crew." and he's going to try and start tying her up with something. Maybe his belt, maybe something in the sash. He has one more action with a bonus die for wrestle. Okay, he manages to do that. He closes the door in the front of the shop and turns the sign to say closed, and brings her down back into the basement. He takes out the coin that was put under his tongue and holds it out in front of her. And she looks very scared. Don't you dare. I have no idea how long it'll be until someone comes down here with that door locked and me not out front. And Andelz says, I was thinking of taking this to the authorities as evidence, but I think you need to tell me where I go next if I'm not going to put this under your tongue. And Rydya says, let's do a random room. Where could this be? A water carrier's office with a large and unusual barrier or barricade in which part of the location is involved with guarding. Interesting. Okay. Well, Rydya says, maybe you've heard of Rilma? Well, the Rilma that's in town has an office, and she describes where in town this is. This is where everything really is happening, but you're not going to be able to get in there by yourself safely, so good luck. We'll meet again. And she's not lying. She really thinks that going there would be foolhardy and get him captured. Does Andelz have another question? Let's see if his intuition can tell him what question to ask. Oh, he definitely knows the right thing to ask. He says, and who's trying to stop this turbulence you mentioned? I earlier spoke to one priest today, and he knew nothing about trouble for the powers like you mentioned. And Rydya said, it's very new. I'm not surprised the powers, maybe they haven't even noticed the full extent of their danger. But they're certainly not going to start a panic by telling every priest that they're losing control over the remains. No, I would talk to the powers themselves. Go into the enchanted forest and talk to Yarn Spinner or something like that. And Andelz then make sure she's tied even more securely and leaves her taking the cursed coin with him. Is there a back door to this shop? So you have to leave out the front. There's no back door, so he has to leave out the front, which will mean leaving it. Well, she would have keys. He can take her keys and lock the door behind him, which will make it a little less convenient for her allies to rescue her. I'm going to award him some experience for finding out more about what's going on and gaining several bits of significant information. So with 2 experience points, he can raise 1 skill up to a 2, or he can save them. I should call them advancement tokens, because that's what they're really called. He's going to change his melee from a 1 to a 2. I didn't want him to stereotypically start as being an amazing warrior, but having only 1 point has really made it difficult to have a story where violence sometimes happens, because he is just so easy to subdue with only 1 point. Now he can defend himself a little better. Maybe some of the techniques for unarmed combat that he was briefly taught at the Meek Manor as he became an Aaron are making more sense now that he's been in a couple scuffles. I'll also say he grabbed something to eat from the shop that was not poisoned before he left to recover his fortitude and resilience. And now we have a 2 in 6 chance of something happening that is a fun complication. No, we rolled a 3. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording just to make sure everything's working, and maybe more soon.